5 minutes after 9 o'clock, it's time for Veterans News, and Hank Whittier is in the studio. Good morning, Hank.
It is a good morning. It's a great morning. It's going to get rain today, which is even a better day. I like that. We need the rain, guys. So I read an article in the paper about this being the worst year in 20 years or something for allergies. I can attest to that. And you can probably still hear it in my voice. But we've got Peter Brigham here from the State's Attorney's Office.
Morning.
We're going to talk about a couple of things this morning. But in the meantime, unfortunately, we do have 2 firefighter casualties, I believe. Is that correct, Gary?
Yeah, we have 2 firefighter casualties. Thank God we don't have any military casualties, or we don't have any law enforcement casualties that are reported to us. But in the past week, we have lost firefighter Barry Van Horn, and he was with the Somerville, New Jersey Fire Department, and he was killed in the line of duty. And in Jackson, Mississippi, we have a notification of a pilot, Brandon Ricks, who was with the Natural Forest Department in Mississippi, who lost his life in the line of duty also. Our thoughts and our prayers go out to the families of these firefighters.
Anybody local they want to mention? Nobody? Good. Okay.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it. Somebody makes this all possible, right?
Yeah, WOCA, of course, but then we have a few other folks that really help us along the way to bring you Veterans News Hour. And you know, this is April, Hank, the beginning of April. First thing I do in April is put new line on my fishing poles, but the second thing I do is get those plants in order so I can put them back in the front of the house. And I need some new azaleas this year, so I'm going to head down to Bob Wine's Camellia Garden and Nursery, who brings us Veterans News Hour every week. They're located at 2610 Southeast 38th Street in beautiful Ocala. When it comes to your landscaping needs, Bob Wines has it all, from small plants to fertilizers, whatever you need. If they don't have it, you probably don't need it. If you can't pick it up yourself, they deliver it. And then listen to this, if you buy a tree from them, they guarantee it if they plant it. So if the tree dies, they'll give you another one. And if you tell them you're a veteran, Bob Wines will give you a 10% discount. You can't beat a deal like that. And also our fine Ocala Ford dealers, who not only serve Ocala, but serve the greater area of Gainesville, Leesville, the Villages, and Bellevue. Of course, their main office is Ford of Ocala, right here on our own North Pine Avenue in Ocala. And you can contact them at a real easy number, area code 352-732-4800. They have all the dealers that I mentioned. They also have used cars if you can't afford a new one. And if you got that old Ford like mine that's got 350,000 miles on it, you need a repair, go ahead, in there. They have the best line of parts, genuine Ford parts, made in America by Americans. You can't forget that. And they also, if you don't want to buy one, they'll lease you one. So get down to your Ford dealers today.
Okay, very good. Outstanding. Hey, listen, 2 things I want to talk about. One is I happened to meet a veteran I want to say hello to, Tom. Tom was a Vietnam-era vet. I happened to meet him the other day. Good guy. He works for a local car rental agency out there. But Tom, appreciate your service. Want to let you know we really appreciate it. It's a big fan of the show. Not of you, Larry, of the veteran show. And let me thank everybody who attended the celebration and recognition of Vietnam veterans last week. Went to the park ceremony. About 100 Vietnam veterans showed up, and about maybe 150 civilian types or other veterans who didn't serve in Vietnam, just to welcome home and thank those Vietnam veterans. It was a great ceremony. Hats off to Jeffrey Askew and his staff, county commissioners that showed up. And, a lot of good things happened over there, and the guys were really, women and men who served in Vietnam were really appreciative of the recognition and the thank you. And the thing that kind of just caught my attention, the speeches were great. Everybody had the appropriate thing to say. There was no grandstanding, but Kathy Bryant, one of the county commissioners, showed up, and Kathy only said a few words, but her tears spoke volumes. So, sometimes it's not what you say, it's the emotion that you reflect, and Kathy's tears for those men and women who served in Vietnam and were finally thanked spoke volumes about that. So, if you see Kathy around town, thank her for her consideration and her thank you to the veterans. We appreciate it. We want to get Peter on because he's got a couple of things to talk about from the state's attorney's office. Do you guys have anything you want to mention briefly?
Of course.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, if you can get to it, we'll get Peter on, and then.
Good morning, Ocala, Marion County. First of all, I'd like to thank everybody for the presence and ask that you continue to help us with our stand downs and anything else to come in the community, because it's a well-known fact that Ocala, Florida is one of the veteran communities that back everything that we try to do. Speaking of trying to do, we have a fish fry coming up tomorrow. So we ask that you come all. Radio 1's VFW Post 7193 is sponsoring a fish fry. It's going to start at 10:30 and end about 4:30 until we run out of fish. The address is 2006 Southwest 2nd Street. That's in Ocala, Florida. 2006 Southwest 2nd Street. That's all day tomorrow from 10:30 to about 4:30 p.m. We ask that you each come out because our objective is to build the community center / post home that's going to be located at 3104 Northwest Old Gainesville Road. Also like to remind everybody that on Saturday morning, the Veteran Park will have its memorial. It's a quarterly thing. It's called a quarterly memorial, where we give each veteran that has passed on to his rewards. We give them a little ding of the bell, a mention of the name and the branch of service in which he served. And yours truly will be given a welcome address on Saturday morning at 10 o'clock at the Veterans Park. Also, I'd like to remind everybody that the 6th annual VFW 7193 Scramble Golf Tournament is going to be at Pine Oaks Golf Course, of course, in Ocala. It's going to be Saturday morning at Saturday morning, May 16th, and the registration starts at 8 to 8:30. They have a shotgun start, format 4 players, team scramble. Entry fee is $60 per player. Includes lunch, free range balls, and a golf cart. We have a long distance contest for the men and women, and closest to the pin, mulligans are $2 each, 50-50 tickets are $1 each. So we ask that you come out, because all the proceeds, including the 50-50 and everything else that goes along with that, would go toward our veterans community center / post home. For more information, you can contact Ron Reese. The telephone number is 352-281-2685. or Liz Lennon at 352-351-3599, or you can call Dr. Calvin Bostic, 352-512-3157. We thank everybody for your participation, and we're just glad to have you.
Good.
Come on out.
All right, outstanding. Now, why don't you take your break, and then when you come back, I'll have the state's attorney's office represented here by Peter Brigham, and we'll talk about some things.
All right, we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. Some sunshine today, but there may be a shower or thunderstorm in spots this afternoon, the high 80 to 84. Clear to partly cloudy tonight, low 60, inland 65 along the coast. Good Friday will be warm with a good deal of sunshine, the high 81 on the coast, 87 inland. For Saturday, partly sunny and warm with a shower or thunderstorm in the afternoon, the high 81 at the coast, 87 inland. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Here's a way for you to have some fun and at the same time support Team WOCA The Source in our efforts to raise funds for the Marion County Literacy Council. You can have Robin and I come to your event or somebody else's event. I play accordion, she plays mandolin, and we'll give the oompa surprise to somebody who may not be expecting it. So call us at 732-8000, ask for Robin. 100% of your donation of any amount will go to the Marion County Literacy Council, and it is tax deductible. Call today, 732-8000.
So you need a credit card, but how do you choose? Let's compare the big banks to Florida Credit Union. They have rewards, and we do too. They have customer service. Hello, 24/7. They have celebrities. Hey, Danny. But with Florida Credit Union, there's no annual fee, no liability for fraudulent charges, and no 22% interest rates. Choose Florida Credit Union, and you'll not only have a great credit card, but you'll have the support and personal touch that the big banks, well, can't touch. Florida Credit Union, connecting your money to your life. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Black Cow composted cow manure is a terrific organic soil amendment. We start with cow manure from dairy farms and then compost it a full 90 days. The result is an all-natural, dark, rich soil amendment that's great for everything you grow. Flowers, vegetables, shrubs, trees, and lawns too. Look for Black Cow in the bright yellow and black bag at your favorite nursery or garden center.
Black Cow, the mature manure, Black Cow.
All right, 16 minutes after 9 o'clock. Let's return to Hank Whittier and Veterans News.
Yeah, we're going to, Pete Brigham, by the way, Pete and his staff showed up for that veteran stand down too, thanks to the state's attorney's office. So we really appreciate that. But,
yes, sir.
But Peter Brigham is an Army veteran. I think he single-handedly, or at least helped capture the tank along the way. I'm sure he'll tell you that story. But
probably not.
But the veterans have a veterans diversion program. Pete represents the state's attorney's office and all of that.
That's right.
It's been a very successful program, thanks to the state attorney and all the other hard workers over there and the judge. So, but Pete wants to. We asked Pete to come in and talk about a couple of issues. So. And Pete's an old radio announcer, so,
yeah,
with the emphasis on old.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I did toil in the vineyards of media at one time. That's true.
Toils in the really,
yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, you like that. See, I went to a real school.
Yeah.
In any event, University of Florida.
You got that in.
I know. I got to get the Gators in. We do have a Veterans Treatment Court here in Marion County, thanks to Judge McCune, and right. Vets helping vets, and Mr. Hank Whittier and Gary. Getting that ball rolling. What we do is a combat vet who suffers from PTSD or TBI or any other problem associated with his combat service, or her combat service, I should say. They are allowed, if they're charged with a crime here in Marion County, to enter into our program, and if they successfully complete it, most of the time the charges are dropped. And these are folks that were straight arrows until their combat service. These are folks that we're sticking our neck out for and hoping they can get things turned around and on the right track. And we've had any number of success stories. I mean, I don't want to name any names, but you've seen the graduations.
It's been extremely successful, and unlike some programs, you do hold people's feet to the fire.
We try to.
And say, hey, you're here because we're behind you, but you have some obligations to fulfill, and
yep.
you and the mentors and the judge make sure they do that, because we want them to be productive citizens again, get back on track.
Right, and you're being a little modest. I think the mentor program through Vets Helping Vets does the lion's share of the work of keeping these guys on the straight and narrow and getting back on track. We at the state attorney's office are more like gatekeepers. Once they're in, we turn it over to y'all, basically, when you get right down.
Well, there's some good people. There's a whole lot of mentors, and we've talked about before. If you're interested in becoming a mentor, just call our office, because it is very rewarding, and you're turning a veteran around who's served his country. These are combat veterans, yep. And like to see the program expand. I don't know if you want to talk about that today or not.
We have I hate to say it, when you say committee, you think nothing's going to get done, but we actually do have a study group committee, and we are looking at a Veterans Court expansion. We at the state attorney's office, we understand the desire to put more people in the program, but public safety comes first, and we also wanted to make sure we did well. We didn't want to come out of the starting gate and fall flat on our face with a big failure on a public safety risk. We've got, like I said, we've got 2 years under our belt. It's time to take the training wheels off, and Mr. King is behind an expansion. We just want to do it the smart way.
Yeah, State Attorney King has been very supportive, and we appreciate that. A lot of times things go unrecognized in the community, but when you look at there's a veterans treatment court, there's a drug court, there's a mental health court. Yep. There's a lot of very innovative things going, which really makes this. People probably don't see the end result sometimes, but it just makes a heck of a difference in this community.
Yeah, Mr. King, we have 15 diversion programs here in Marion County alone at our office. Yes, sir. And basically, he wants to keep people who have just messed up and need another chance to stay out of jail, stay out of prison, and get back on the straight and narrow.
Well, that's the positive side, and that's what we want. And everybody else out there, besides doing the right thing for these people, ought to be thinking about the money that we're saving.
Well,
I mean, that's a huge savings for you and I, the taxpayers of Marion County.
That's true, but in this life, it's hard to point to something you haven't spent and say you've saved it.
Well,
I can understand why people are skeptical about it. I understand that, but you're absolutely right.
You can put a figure to it. We know that you're really talking in the millions of dollars. I had a meeting with Chris Blair the other day about the jail and some related issues, and he's a big supporter of these diversion programs because the bottom line is that some people don't belong in jail,
right?
And they really would do better if we put them into these programs. Yeah. But then the bottom line is, those are dollars that taxpayers are spending. And
absolutely.
If we can get those people back on track, doing the right thing, being productive citizens again, and at the same time saving your money, right. I can't think of a better way to go.
Yeah, I mean, I've known Sheriff Blair for years. He doesn't want to put anybody in his jail, but it's a necessary evil in our society.
Well, there are some people who belong there.
Well, I'm not arguing that point. I'm telling you.
I'm probably, I'm not so sure about you people.
Well, he takes no pleasure in it. But can we talk a little bit about PTSD?
Absolutely. Let's go there a little bit.
PTSD is a chronic condition. It's post-traumatic stress disorder. There's basically no cure. There's coping and there's treatment. And a lot of these guys that end up in Veterans Treatment Court have PTSD. Well, there's a very, I want to underline very, controversial treatment for PTSD using a drug known as MDMA. That's the chemical abbreviation for it, but it has a street name, and it's called ecstasy. And if anybody's been around in the 80s and 90s, there was a lot of press about people dying from these all-night rave dance parties, taking adulterated ecstasy, adulterated MDMA, and sometimes not even MDMA at all. But I can tell you, there's a MAPS.org is an organization that is successfully treating chronic severe PTSD with as little as 2 doses of MDMA with supportive therapy.
Mm-hmm. Who's doing that? I mean, what is there an agency?
Yes, it's called MAPS, MAPS.org. It's Dr. Rick Doblin is the guy behind this. The Star Banner actually may be writing a feature article on this here in the near future. In any event, it's very controversial. MDMA is a Schedule I narcotic according to the DEA and the federal government, which means they don't recognize any legitimate use for the drug. And I don't want to speak for the MAPS organization. They're not using the word cure, but I've read some case studies. I've actually read the memoirs of the people who've been through this, victims of horrendous sexual abuse, combat veterans, all sort of things, and they say they're cured. Mm-hmm. They say, hey, we don't take any anti-anxiety drugs. We don't do anything else anymore, and we're fine.
Does Surgeon General have a report on this or a position on this?
Well, they want to stay away from it as long as it's Schedule I.
Okay.
The Department of Defense is staying away from it as well. Although there's a pilot program in South Carolina treating combat veterans, and they're watching it closely.
And who is running that program? Is it
MAPS, the MAPS organization?
Yeah, I'd like to get some information on that because again, it's a situation we run into all the time. With PTSD. Some other people maintain and are able to function, but still there are issues they're dealing with.
Right.
We saw that the other day at the Park Company. The guys and women were still dealing with issues because of combat-related stress issues.
Sure. I mean, we've got.
But if you've got information on that, I like to. Matter of fact, there must be some studies already out. Whereabouts in South Carolina is this?
I think I want to say it's in the Columbia area.
Columbia.
I want to say I'm not geographically. I'm not quite sure, but I believe it's around Columbia.
I've seen you trying to find your way around geographic, and map reading is not your strong point, Peter. Anyway,
let me tell you what, a Marine like you wouldn't know a map from a compass anyway.
Oh my goodness!
Say that?
Did you hear that?
But you know what? The difference is we always took the hill.
That's right. We just take
whether we knew where we were going or not. It might have been the wrong hill, but
we'll let the little brother brag all they want.
Peter, let's. I like to follow when we get. Maybe we can do an hour show on all of this.
Absolutely, love
and kind of get everybody involved. I might even have the VA here. We can, and I'm sure there'll be a little debating going on.
Yeah,
because it is controversial. I've heard a little bit about it, but not a lot. And I'm sure a lot of folks would like to know more about it. This is going to be our half-hour version today, so I definitely want to get you guys back. I talked to the sheriff about doing some hour shows with us, and he wants to do that. But in addition to that, the same invitation goes for the state's attorney's office and some other people in town that I want to.
Sure.
I like folks to know who we're dealing with, who our leaders are in the community. And I mentioned briefly before you got into all this other stuff and PTSD,
all this other drug stuff.
This drug stuff you like to talk about all the time. I need to talk to you, Brad. Does Brad have a direct line I can get him at?
No, actually he doesn't.
But U.S. Army, you're a captain at?
Yes, I am.
Years were what?
Do what now?
The years.
Believe it or not, I enlisted as a private in the Army in 1986, went through officers candidate school, and I left active duty the first time in 91 after Desert Storm.
Okay.
And went to law school, returned to college at University of Florida, the greatest university in the state of Florida, I might add. And far superior to the Naval Academy. I don't know if you know that, but that's actually true. And then
you are on drugs, aren't you? Of some sort.
Caffeine.
Caffeine.
Highly caffeinated.
I think does Brad administer drug testing for his employees?
Only for caffeine, and I fail every time.
And by the way, congratulations on that fundraiser you did the other day. That was outstanding. Appreciate that.
Yeah.
But tell them the story of the tank, because I get a kick out of the tank all the time.
Story of the tank. Okay, first of all, it was not a tank.
Now it's a Jeep, right?
Well, no. There's a certain judge in town who will remain nameless who doesn't know the difference between a howitzer and a tank. And what actually happened was me, and it wasn't single-handedly, me and my platoon sergeant, by the way, captured Sergeant First Class Allen, Smoke Allen as we affectionately called him. He and I captured a Soviet-built 122 millimeter self-propelled howitzer, and then we captured an American-built M109 Alpha 1 howitzer that somehow the Iraqis ended up with. So we basically took it and we cannibalized it for what parts we wanted off of it. And both of them now are in front of the Artillery Museum at Fort Sill, home of the artillery, Oklahoma.
Is that right?
Yes, absolutely. You darn tootin' they are.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
It's true fact. Not a tank. Not a tank.
Okay. So you get out, you decide that radio wasn't your career, and you go back to school, become an attorney.
Yeah.
And how long have you been with the state's attorney's office?
I've been in the state's attorney's office in one form or another for about 16 or 17 years. But in the middle there, the Army called me back after 9/11. So I ended up back on active duty. They combed their records and said, who's dumb enough to come back, who's actually fought in a desert before? And so they grabbed me.
Are you trying to save me a punchline here? Is that what you're trying to do? And I appreciate it.
I'm always going to beat you to it if I
can. Well, Peter, listen, again, and Brad knows this, and I've tried to talk to Brad a couple of times about how much we appreciate his support for the veteran program. Appreciate you, because having a veteran represent the state's attorney's office at that program level, you couldn't ask for anything better. You're a lot more understanding than I am. You and I have talked about that a couple of times. I'm sitting back there going, I'm ready to pull the plug on a couple of the guys, and you're working with them. So I appreciate that. And people in the community need to know how many good things are really happening here, and you're one of them.
Yeah.
The state's attorney's office is another one. So we got a lot of things going, as Sergeant Curley likes to talk about, and that's what we're trying to profile some people in the community. You're one of the good guys.
Well, let me tell you, in our business, we hear from defense attorneys, always a good guy who's never been in trouble. Well, when you've got a DD-214 of a guy who had no criminal record before he went to combat, you're dealing with a good guy, or fine young woman, until whatever their combat experience changed them, however it changed them.
Yeah. And you give them an opportunity to get to return to the values that they once had. They lost maybe temporarily, and we're getting them back on track. So it's outstanding. Everybody connected with that program needs a pat on the back, and we'll do it publicly today.
I'll pass it along. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is one of our half-hour versions, so we'll just tell everybody again. You want to talk about, certainly Ford, Bob Wine's Nursery, WOCA, all great people to this veteran community, and thank you all again for turning out last week to honor Vietnam veterans. Hope to do it again, bigger and better next time around. So
hoorah.
Thank you
and
for you.
While they're listening, Hank, with these hour shows,
10 seconds.
We can use a couple more sponsors.
2 seconds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Fox News Radio, I'm Lillian Wu. Hundreds of students unaccounted for after an attack on a Kenya campus allegedly at the hands of a terror group.
The attackers managed to get inside the building. There are fears that hostages could be taken. The Somali extremist group Al-Shabaab has taken responsibility for the attack.
Fox Radio's Jessica Gallagher, at least 15 dead, another 60 hurt. A scramble in Arkansas and Indiana to revise controversial legislation on religious freedom.
Republican governors in both states are trying to tamp down a growing backlash from businesses and other critics who say the proposals are anti-gay. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson has asked the legislature to change the measure he originally said he'd sign into law. The governor has